Abbey Road, I think, sits at a kind of a changing point in the history of rock music. It's, of course, the legacy is the last big studio album that the Beatles worked on together. It has a lot of the pop element that had been so much a part of their success through 64, 65, and 66, but also a lot of sort of ambitious artistic elements that are maybe reined in a little bit and synthesized better with the pop element. Abbey Road is the first album that the Beatles really focused on the stereo mix of the record as opposed to the mono mix. And of course, stereo became a big part of records in the 1970s. It seems to me fairly clear that the whole Get Back, Let It Be project of January of 1969, they considered it to be a failure, even though those recordings would come out later, actually after Abbey Road as the Let It Be album. They tried to get back to their original roots as just four guys playing together in a band, rehearsing and writing songs together, but everybody had sort of moved too far on in their own musical development for that to work anymore. And I think it was pretty clear that they had one more album left in them. Let's get back into the studio and make the best album we could make as a way of putting a kind of final a note on the career of the Beatles. The thing about the end of side one is that it ends after a big buildup of guitar arpeggios and synthesizer noise, and all of a sudden it cuts off very abruptly. And it throws the silence that falls into relief. That's on the record. On a CD or streaming, the next thing you hear is not the silence, but George Harrison's guitar from the beginning of side two for Here Comes the Sun. And so you get there a contrast between loud and quiet, whereas in the original, it was loud and silence. I think David Chase, coming some years later, was also sort of following on this when he ended The Sopranos with just a cut. And all of a sudden, your attention was thrown on the blackness. And I think that's what Lennon was going for at the end of side one of Abbey Road. Side one was really done the way that John wanted the album to go. That is, separate songs, the way they had mostly been on the other records. Side two, however, was done the way Paul wanted it to go, which was by bringing all the songs together into one long side that was relatively uninterrupted and could be seen as one giant piece. Maybe the most important lyric on all of side two is the one that goes, "Once there was a way to get back home." And in many ways, the second side of Abbey Road, I think, is Paul's musings on this idea of the inevitability of the separation of the Beatles, and he sort of nostalgically longs for those early days that are now gone forever. And in the end, is there a last album a group like the Beatles could do that would really put a satisfactory end to it? And probably not. I think that's a little bit what Paul means when he says you're going to carry that weight a long time. But it has come to be thought of as really the end of an era and one of the iconic albums for the band.